This is my 147 square foot home office, or as I like to call it, the Ced quarters. It literally kind of sounds like a pirate hideout. Now, if you're new here, welcome. My name is Cedric. I make tech videos, and basically this room is where all of that kind of goes down. From planning videos to filming videos, editing videos, video games, printing videos. Wait, what? Basically, what I'm trying to say is I've spent a lot of time in here and have spent a lot of time refining and tweaking everything to be as efficient as possible. So today I thought I'd show you guys around from what's on my desk to what I use to film videos, and maybe you'll even get to see what's behind this door. Now, I've made a couple of videos talking about this desk already, so I'll try not to go too in depth. Basically, this is a work/gaming setup. My M3 Max MacBook Pro slides right underneath the desk here on the left side whenever I want to work on content, and my PC sits on the right side whenever I want to play games. Yes, I know I could use my PC for both, but I like working on my laptop because that means I'm not really restricted to just working here. Plus, it's got AirDrop. To switch back and forth between the two, I have this KVM switch, which is sitting right underneath my desk. This is basically so I can use the same mouse, keyboard, and monitor without always having to plug things in or out of anything. While we're on the topic of the mouse, keyboard, and monitor, I'm still rocking the high ground 65% keyboard. Whenever I'm working on content, I'm using the Logitech MX Master 3S. And recently, when it comes to gaming, I've been using this 3D printed mouse. I haven't had too much time with it yet, but I will say my first impressions overall is this thing is pretty sick. I am still on the hunt for a better mouse pad. This one is from Orbit Keys, and while I think it looks clean, I just do not like the synthetic leather material. I do like the size of the mouse pad though. It doesn't take up too much room, and I think it's the perfect amount of space between the edge of the desk and the monitor. Now, the monitor is the MSI MAG321 UPX. It's a 4K QD OLED monitor with a 240Hz refresh rate, and it's currently sitting on my Ergotron dual monitor arm, which, as you can see, I'm only using one arm. I definitely used to be a multi-monitor kind of guy, but after rocking this single monitor setup for a while, I think it's the move. It's simple and it's just a much cleaner look. The monitor itself is a fantastic monitor for gaming, but I can't say the same for editing, especially when it comes to color grading. Now, in the future, I'd love to build a separate gaming setup again and maybe get a studio display in here, but after looking at the price of a studio display, I'm totally fine with keeping the gaming setup here for now. But when it comes to gaming, we have this behemoth. This is my gaming PC. Here are the specs in case you're wondering. It's been a beast. It serves me well. It looks great, but if I'm being honest, I'm kind of tired of having a giant box sitting on my desk. Now, luckily, I have been collecting some PC parts, and I'll be doing my first mini ITX build in a future video, so subscribe if you want to see that. I 3D printed this whole Minecraft chest just for this shot, so please subscribe. Now, speaking of 3D printing, if you saw my last video, you would have saw that I've 3D printed a whole bunch of different desk accessories, like the MagSafe charger that sits on my monitor, this mouse that I mentioned earlier, this entire desk shelf, and even the speaker stands that hold my Kanto YU2 speakers all came from my Bamboo Lab A1, which we'll get to in a bit. Around this shelf, we have some smaller accessories like these 3D printed coasters, a 3D printed photo holder, and more practical things like the controller to my screen bar Halo monitor light. But tucked away over here is my Rodecaster Duo. This is my audio mixer that I used to record voiceovers like this one. I used to have it out in the open on the side, but I felt like it was a little bit too bulky, so I tucked it away underneath the desk shelf. And yes, that means it does cover the controls, but the Rodecaster has a preset for this mic, so I can really just set it and forget it. I don't ever need to touch the controls, so it's not really a huge issue for me. The mic I'm using is the Rode Pod mic, which I have set up to this bad boy. I am actually stoked about this part of my desk. It is easily one of my favorite recent additions. This is my all-in-one content creation filming setup. For reference, this is what it used to look like. The mic arm was on one part of the desk, the lighting wasn't adjustable. Basically now I just wanted something all in one place that still allowed for some form of flexibility. And so this was born. It's based off of a video from DSLR video shooter from a couple of years ago with a few changes that fit my space, my workflow, and just match my overall style. I'll show you guys how to build it, but if some of you would rather skip ahead, feel free to go to this timestamp. So the whole thing actually sits on an extra tall monitor mount, which is great because if this can hold the weight of a monitor, this can hold everything else you need. This specific monitor mount is from a brand called Wally, which you can find on Amazon. And this basically just clamps onto the edge of the desk. Now we need to mount the mic arm. I have an Elgato low profile boom arm that I didn't want to go to waste, so I figured out a way to integrate it within this whole rig. To do that, we need this universal pole mount from Vivo, which we're actually going to take apart because the only thing we really need is the clamping part. start. With this, we could take the base of the mic arm, one of these, which according to ChatGPT is an M6 or M5 bolt. Honestly, I just had this laying around. Maybe you can use something else. But basically, you can now screw the base onto the clamp, which then lets you slide the mic arm onto the base, and then you can now clamp the entire thing onto the monitor mount. Now, since I'm using the Rode Pod mic, the mic arm for me is going to go all the way at the bottom. But if you're using a shotgun mic, you can totally mount it at the top of the pole and boom a mic over you. I would say just make sure you decide that before you put on the lighting. For the lighting, the extra tall monitor mount comes with, well, a monitor mount. So this just slides onto the main pole, and on the other end is typically where you would put the VESA plate to mount a monitor. But instead, since there's conveniently this thread here, we can easily mount a ball head mount onto it. And on the ball head mount is the Amaran Verge. It's a really good bicolor LED panel and makes for a great key light. It isn't battery powered though, which means you have to run a cable up to it. Luckily, since this is a monitor mount, it comes with cable management hooks. So it's a lot easier to keep this whole thing clean. For the camera, I'm using a combination of an impact super clamp, a small magic arm, and a small rig ball head mount. Combine them all together and you get this crazy contraption, but you can then take the super clamp and clamp it onto the pole. The ball head also uses a Ulanzi Falcam F38 quick release system, so I can easily add or remove my camera. I actually use this quick release system with all of my tripods and ball heads in here. It is just insanely convenient. And finally, closer to the bottom is my Shinobi Go monitor. This basically just clamps on by using the clamp of a magic arm, and with a quarter male-to-male thread, I can also add on this small rig quick release system. This is so if I ever wanted to use the monitor anywhere else, I can easily detach it. But that is pretty much it for this little filming tree. It is what I'm using to film this video right now. I'll have links to everything in this video in the description, so if there's anything you're interested in, just head down there. They are affiliate links which help support the channel, but of course you don't have to use them. The desk itself is a sit-stand desk from Mavix, which I actually swapped the tabletop out for a 6-foot butcher block just for a little bit more room. It does have a wobble though, so if I ever get a new one, probably would end up getting like a 4-legged desk or something like that. But as a sit-stand desk in general, it works as intended. When I'm sitting down, I'm using this chair from Steelcase. It's super comfortable, has great recline. It's a chair I don't mind spending hours in. Now, when I raise the desk, I either just stand here or I get my steps in using a walking treadmill. The one I use is the C2 from Walking Pad. I absolutely love this thing. I personally try to get 10,000 steps a day, but when I need to lock in on some work and have to be at my desk all day, this thing is the lifesaver. A huge reason why I like this walking pad in particular is the fact that it can fold. So whenever I'm not using it, I can just fold it back up and store it right here on the right side of my desk. I did try swapping places with the blue locker, which is on the left side of my desk, but the treadmill was just a bit too wide. And if I shift my desk to the right, then the picture frames up here aren't going to be aligned. It's a first world problem. The picture frames are from IKEA with the artwork from Etsy, and the blue locker is from Amazon, which I kind of just use for random storage, but truthfully, I just got it because I thought it looks cool. It's basically a blend of function and aesthetic, which is kind of what we got going on with the wall behind me. The goal here is to have a nice background for filming videos, but also have it be functional by storing different pieces of gear and props. And yes, the door from earlier is also along this wall, but don't worry, we'll get to that in a bit. On the right side of the wall, we have my Vihals cabinet from IKEA. I've had this for about 2 years now, still going strong, and I still don't know if I'm ever pronouncing the name correctly. I really like the all white minimal look, and keeping the top left side a bit emptier is nice because the surface is great for doing things like flat lays or product shots. On the right side is where I keep my Bambu Lab A1 3D printer with the AMS light next to it, which you might have seen from last week's video. It is such a great entry-level 3D printer. I do have the X1C, but I gotta say the neutral tones of the A1, it just feels like it fits better in my office. I did not expect to enjoy 3D printing as much as I do now, and it has been such a big quality of life upgrade for me. As you can probably tell, I love using props in videos, and now being able to print them out has been game-changing. But then you could start printing more of the practical things like all the desk accessories I showed you earlier. Even the cable management for my desk was 3D printed. I've even printed things that I use as decoration around my house. Of course, not all the decor is 3D printed. Like I've got the giant Stendig calendar, which ties in nicely with the cabinet, but then in the corner, I've got this fake plant from IKEA, which helps add a bit of green and contrast against all these neutral tones. The cabinet itself stores things like my magic arms, my batteries, random camera gear that I consider to be out of sight and out of mind, which is kind of the opposite mindset we have going on with the giant pegboard over here. This is a decorative piece in itself, but also serves some practical functionality. I built this a little over a year ago. It's made out of a 4x8 piece of plywood, and it basically acts as my statement shelf, holding a bunch of different things related to all of my different interests. I won't go over everything on here, but just to point out some of my favorites, we have this Xbox 360 controller teardown from Grid Studio. The 360 was literally the most goated console for me growing up, and this piece of art is a nice reminder of the good old days. I even have it sitting on my limited edition Halo 3 Xbox 360, RIP. We have the speaker from Severance. This is one of my favorite shows of all time. This is 3D printed, but I also made it big enough to fit a Google Nest Mini inside. So this thing is actually functional.
Okay, Google, tell me a joke.
What's the most musical part of a turkey? The drumsticks.
What's also nice about having a statement shelf is that they're not just here for display purposes, they also double as props that I can use for B-roll, and just having them out in the open makes them so much easier to utilize. Like if I'm filming a video and just need a prop, I can just grab something off the shelf and throw it in the frame. The same concept goes for this shelf. This one is dedicated to all of my lenses, and I like to keep them out in the open because it's easier for me to access them whenever I'm filming videos. We've got the 90mm for the macro, 28-75 for some tighter shots, 17-28 for the wide, 10mm for that crazy ultra wide, 10-16mm for fun vlogging lens, and just the kit lens for, I don't know, I don't really ever use the kit lens actually. I've also got the Fuji X106, which is a great camera. I just need to use it more. But the entire wall in general, I feel like is a great example of maximizing space. It works as a background, it doubles as storage, and it just gives me options for filming just based off the aesthetic alone. There are some items that don't have a permanent home though. We'll call these floaters, and they're just the pieces of gear that move around a lot because I use them so much. The first one being a C-stand from Newer. This is what I use for my top-down shots. We got my Amaran 300C on a light stand and a mini light dome. This is the key light I use when I'm not filming at my desk here. And of course my tripod, which is the Ulanzi Falcam F38 carbon fiber tripod. While these items don't have a permanent home, they definitely get used a lot over at my backdrop wall. This is where I go when I want to film top-down shots or just B-roll shots in general with different colored backdrops. I've been using this Newer 3-roller backdrop system for a little over a year now, but I gotta say this has easily been like the best addition I've added to this space. Just to the left of it is a Varipole with an Amaran 150C rocking the lantern attachment to help light up the entire room. But what's also nice about the 150C and the 300C I mentioned earlier is the fact that they're both RGB WW lights, meaning lighting is super flexible when it comes to color and color temperature. Below the backdrop system, which you can see right here, is actually 3 memo boards from IKEA. Shout out to the homie Will for putting me on. I use these as whiteboards, and I use it to write down things like my goals, video ideas, and my to-do list. I do use Notion for this stuff mainly, but it's also nice to just have a physical place to write things down. Plus, it's in a spot that I see every day, which is great. Now, below the whiteboards is my Husky workbench. If I had a list of my favorite things in this studio, the workbench is like in the top 3. This alone just allows for so much flexibility and opens up a lot of creative opportunities. Like I could use it as a standalone desk for a sit-down A-roll shot, or I can connect it to this desk and turn it into an L desk. I can use the wooden tabletop for B-roll, but if I didn't want the wooden tabletop look, I could put it up against the wall and take one of the colored backdrops and throw that over the table. I could move it out of the way if I just need more space. And to top it all off, it's got storage. Like, what more could you possibly ask for? It's just insanely convenient to have something like this that allows for so many different possibilities and use cases, especially when you're working in a space this small. And yeah, I know I've been yapping about how small this space is and how I've been making it as efficient as possible. But at the end of the day, this space is not getting any bigger. Until today. So behind this door, we have the said quarters expansion pack. Over the next few weeks, I'll be turning this room into additional studio space, creating different sets for filming, maybe a dedicated workbench for 3D printing, maybe even a gaming setup. If you like how this space turned out, subscribe, and we'll see how the next one ends up.